Hello and welcome to today's English Grammar Podcast. I'm Dania and today I'll be sharing with you the most commonly used phrasal verbs with take. The first phrasal verb is take off. Take off. What does that mean? You need to use it when you speak about leaving the ground and begin to fly if you are on the airplane, or removing something like clothing, for example, right? So in this case, we can use take off. Now let's look at some examples to know more about the use of this phrasal verb. Example number one, the plane will take off soon. What does that mean? It means that it's about to start flying very soon. So the passengers will fly very soon. But instead of saying the passengers will fly, we can just say take off. The plane will take off. Now let's look at the second example. Example number two. Take off your shoes before entering the house. What does that mean? It means that you need to remove your shoes. You are not allowed to get into the house with your shoes. So in this case, you need to take off your shoes. Alright? So this is how you can use take off in sentences. And now we will be moving into another phrasal verb. Take on. Take on. What does that mean? When you agree to do a task or accept a responsibility, so in this case you can say, or you can use take on. Alright, now let's look at some examples to know more about the use of take on in sentences. Example number one, I will take on the task of cleaning my room. So in this case, I will take the responsibility of cleaning the room. And instead of saying I'll take the responsibility, you can just say I'll take on the task. So this is how you can use take on in sentences. Now let's look at another example. She took on the responsibility of feeding the cat. She took on. Why are we saying took on? Because we are speaking about something happened and finished in the past. And so we need to use took. Took here is the past tense of take. Okay? So in this case, we can say she took on. So basically, this is how you can use a take on in sentences when you need to speak about responsibilities. So you can say you are taking on for some parts of a project, or maybe like you are taking on for something. So when you want to speak about personalities, you can use take on. Okay, so now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take over. Take over. What does that mean? When you take control for something, then you can say you take over. Okay, so now let's look at some examples to know more about the use of take over and how to use it in sentences. The new teacher will take over the class tomorrow. So in this case, there is basically a new teacher who will be replacing the former teacher, and so instead of saying she will replace the former teacher, we can say she will take over, or he will take over the class. Okay, and in here we are using will in the sentence. Why? Because we are speaking about something that will happen tomorrow, and this is related to the future tense. So back to the sentence, this is how we can use take over. Now let's look at another example to understand more about the use of take over. Example number two, after the manager left, Sarah had to take over his duties. So in this case, we are speaking about a manager who had to leave the company, alright? And so in this case, Sarah had to take over his duties. She had to do all the tasks, responsibilities that her manager used to have. Okay, and in this case we need to use had to. Why? Because we are speaking about something happened in the past, but because we have had to, so I mean, as I told you in the previous videos, if you have to in the sentence, you need to make sure that the verb after to should be in a base form condition. Had to take over. All right, so now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take out. Take out. What does that mean? You need to use it when you speak about removing something from a place, or when you want to go to a restaurant for eating some food. Alright, so in this case we can use take out. Now let's look at some examples to know more about this phrasal verb. Example number 1. Please take out the trash before you leave. What does that mean? The meaning of the sentence is asking someone in the house, right, to take out, like to take the trash out of the house before this person leaves, like maybe before leaving to work, to school, things like that. So we need to take out the trash. We need to like put the trash outside the house. This is the meaning of take out in this case. Okay, so now let's move into another example. Let's take out pizza for dinner tonight, or take out some pizza. So in this case we are having a suggestions about going to the restaurant, or going to a pizza restaurant to eat some pizza. So that is why we say let's take out pizza for dinner tonight. Right? So this is how you can use take out in sentences. And now let's move into another phrasal verb. Take up. Take up. What does that mean? You need to use it when you speak about starting a particular activity or hobby. So in this case we can say take up. Alright, so like for example, taking up some sport, taking up some piano lessons, taking up anything, any kind of hobbies that you feel are interesting, you can say I am taking up, and then with the name of the hobby. So now let's look at some examples to know more about the use of take up in sentences. Example number 1. She decided to take up painting as a hobby. What does that mean? It means that she is really interested in painting, and so she decided to take it up as a hobby to practice it more and becomes a successful painter. Alright, so this is how we can use take up in sentences. And there is another example, so let's have a look at it. Example number 2. He took up jogging to improve his fitness. So this is basically another example of taking up something as a hobby. Alright, so before moving into the next phrasal verb, I would like to ask if you have any questions regarding what we have been speaking about. If yes, then please let me know in the comments. And also, if you have other topics or maybe other ideas, suggestions for the upcoming videos, or maybe for the upcoming English podcast, alright, please let me know in the comments as well, because I'm really looking forward to reading your comments, suggestions, to know more about the things that you are very much interested in. Okay, so now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is taken. Taken. What does that mean? You need to use this phrasal verb when you understand or comprehend information, or to accommodate someone in one's home. Alright, so this is the use of take in. So like for example, you are maybe reading some information or maybe trying to understand something, alright, and in the end, when you manage to get the idea, you can say, oh, finally I managed to take it in. So take in this case, when you understand something quite well. Alright, so let's look at some examples to understand more the use of this phrasal verb. Example number 1. It took a while for him to take in the instructions. What does that mean? It means that he might have experienced some difficulties or challenges understanding some instructions, and that is why it took him quite some time to take in to understand the instructions. Okay, so now let's move into another example. Example number 2, we decided to take in the stray cat and give it a home. What does that mean? When we speak about stray cats, we refer to cats who used to live indoors, alright, and used to have like regular contact with the humans, but then all of a sudden maybe this particular cat lost everything, so it becomes abandoned. Okay, and there is actually a difference between stray cat and street cat. Street cat that lives on streets, but for stray cat is a kind of a cat who used to have a place for living, maybe used to be in contact with particular people, and all of a sudden this cat loses everything, and that is why we call it stray cat. All right, so back to this example, we need to use a taken in this case. So yeah, this is how we can use take in sentences, and now we can move into another phrasal verb, which is take down. Take down. What does that mean? You need to use this phrasal verb when you want to remove something or when you need to write down some information. So in this case, if you want to write some information, you can say I am taking down some notes, for example. Or if you want to remove something, you can say we need to take down this thing. Alright, so when it comes to removing stuff, so let's look at some examples to understand this particular phrasal verb. Example number 1, they needed to take down the old shed in the backyard. What is the meaning of shed? Shed basically refers to maybe a particular shelter for animals, or maybe a workshop, or something that is maybe being used for gardening. So anything, alright, that is located or maybe structured in the backyard. So in this case, we can use take down. Why? Because we need to remove this particular shed from the backyard. And now let's move into another example. Example number 2, during the meeting, she took down notes of the important points. What does that mean? It means that she was in a meeting, and during that meeting, she took down notes. She wrote some important information, and in this case, we can say took down. And we are using took, not take. Why? Because we are speaking about something that happened and finished in the past. So took here is the past tense of take. Alright, so this is how we can use take down or took down, alright, in sentences. And now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take back. What does that mean? You need to use it to speak about returning something to the place it came from, or to revoke something said. Alright, let's look at some examples to understand more about this particular phrasal verb. Example number 1, I need to take back this shirt. It doesn't fit me. What does that mean? Probably this person has tried wearing a particular shirt, but it doesn't fit him or her. Maybe it's either too big or too small. Alright, or maybe the color is not suitable, because sometimes like when we look at a shirt, alright, we feel like the color is so suitable, everything is amazing, but when we try it on, we find the opposite. So in this case, he or she wants to take the shirt back to the shop. Alright, so let's look at another example. Example number 2, I'm sorry for what I said earlier. I take it back. What does that mean? It means that the speaker feels sad, maybe regrets over what he or she said, and decides to take it back. So this is the meaning of the example. Take after. What does that mean? You need to use this phrasal verb to speak about the characteristics that we resemble from our family members. So it can be from our parents, maybe from grandparents, relatives, things like that. All right. So let's look at some examples to understand more the use of this particular phrasal verb. Example number 1. Sarah really takes after her mother. They have similar personalities. What does that mean? It means that Sarah and her mother are exactly the same in terms of the personality, alright? And in here, we are using takes. Why? Because we are speaking about Sarah. We are referring to Sarah. And because Sarah is a singular subject, so we need to add S to take, alright? So it will be Sarah takes after. Alright, so let's look at another example to understand the idea much better. I take after my grandfather. We both have a love for gardening. What does that mean? It means that both of them love gardening, and so they enjoy what they are doing. They have the same personality. So in this case, we can say I take after. Alright, so this is how you can actually use take after in sentences. Now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take to. Take to. What does that mean? When you begin to like or enjoy something, you can use this phrasal verb. Now let's look at some examples to understand how we can use take to in sentences. Example number 1. She took to playing the piano at a young age, meaning that she's developed like great interest in playing piano at a young age. And so in this case, we can use took to. So took here is the past tense of take because we are speaking about the young age. All right. Now let's look at another example. Example number 2. He took to his new job quickly, meaning that he developed great interest in his new job, maybe because of the atmosphere, maybe the like his colleagues, the job scope that he has to do. So basically everything seems to be interesting to him, and so he took to this job quite quickly. So this is how you can use take to in sentences. Now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take away. You need to use this phrasal verb when you speak about removing something or to carry something from one place to another. So this is basically the meaning of take away. Now let's look at some examples to understand more the use of take away. Example number 1. The waiter asked if we wanted to eat in or take away our order. What does that mean? It means that they went into a restaurant and the waiter wanted to make sure if they want to enjoy their meal in the restaurant. So it can be like eaten, because eaten means to be in the restaurant, or to take away. Take away, that means they order the food and take them away. Maybe they want to eat them back at home or maybe at another place. So this is the meaning of take away. Now let's look at another example. Can you take away these boxes to the storage room, please? Can you take away these boxes? What does that mean? The person is asking for help. Like he wants someone to help him or to help her removing these boxes from one place to the storage room. So in this case, we can use take away, because as we mentioned, you can use take away to speak about removing something from one place to another when you don't want to eat in a restaurant, so you want to order the food but eat somewhere else. All right, so this is how we can use take away. Now let's look at another phrasal verb, which is take through. Take through. What does that mean? You need to use it to speak about guiding. Let's like to guide or lead someone through a process or procedure. Take through. Let's look at some examples to know more about this phrasal verb. Example number 1. The teacher took us through the steps of making a paper airplane. The teacher took us through the steps. What does that mean? It means that the teacher taught us, alright? She provided us with the steps to know how to make a paper airplane. So in this case we can use took through. That means she guided us if using a step-by-step method. Alright, so let's look at the following example to know more about this phrasal verb. Example number 2. Can you take me through how to set up this software on my computer? So this person is actually asking for some help on how to set the software on his computer, and so he wants someone to guide him, to show him the steps, like step-by-step detail. So that is why he's saying, can you take me through? Can you take me through? So in this case, guys, if you want some guidance, or if you want someone to teach you or to provide you with step-by-step details, you can use take through. Alright, so now let's move into another phrasal verb, which is take across. Take across. What does that mean? You need to use this phrasal verb to speak about crossing a place. Alright, so that is why here it says to transport someone or something across a distance. So let's say, for example, you need to cross a place. Okay, you need to go from one place to another with the help of someone. So you can use take across. Now let's look at some examples to understand the idea much better. Example number 1. We need a guide to take us across the forest safely. So in this case, they are somehow in the forest, but not exactly sure how to walk in. So they need someone who is very familiar, maybe who knows the way in the forest, or maybe who knows how to get out of the forest safely without any danger. And so we can use take us across, or maybe like take across. All right. So let's have a look at another example. We need a boat to take us across the river. So what does that mean? It means that they need to cross the river, but they need a boat to take them across the river. So in this case, we can use take across. All right? So yeah. So basically, this is all about the use of phrasal verbs with take. I really hope you find these phrasal verbs useful, and thank you so much for watching. And let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, other topics that you want me to speak about. Just let me know in the comments. Alright, and if you have any questions regarding what I have just explained, or maybe if you have questions about the use of like different grammar topics like tenses, things like that, just let me know in the comments. So have a great day and take care. Bye bye.